I hate ministry. I saw this man of God coming down with 14 protocols. 14. One had his phone with him. One had his this face towel that he's going to use to clean his face. And the next thing he said to me that, he's a pastor. He can't be found eating where everybody is. He just has to. And as soon as he saw me, him recounted the story for me. He said, oh my God, Shola has come to deceive these people again. I'll steal my dad's clothes, then borrow somebody, pay him 2,000 naira to come represent us as dad. And I was going for midweek service and I wind down. As I said, God, Paul, I just remember that I had a member. Hi, everyone. My name is Shola Okodugha. Finally. Now, let me tell you something before I reintroduce myself. I've been trying to do this for almost a year. So first and foremost, I must admit that I've been in disobedience in trying to get to do this. But finally, we're here, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do this. So let's keep back again, and let me now introduce myself with my new self of my obedient self. I hope you understand what I mean by obedience. Okay, obedient. My name is Shola Okodugha. I'm the global lead pastor of the new church. I'm a business owner. I own 2 businesses, and I live in Lagos, Nigeria, and I travel around the world quite often. So let me tell you what this is about. Of course, many of you know me as Shola Okodugha. Some people know me as PS. And now my newfound name, which I think I love personally, which is MVMNT. So welcome to the MVMNT Podcast. Woo-hoo. It's been 1 year I've been trying to do this, and I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do this. Now, let me tell you this. You'll be so nourished by the things that I'll be sharing. You'll be so blessed. We'll have a great time of conversation. Don't forget, you can send me emails, and that email would be shola@movement.com. So you can send that email to shola@movement.com. And I'm happy to take as many questions as you want and be very happy to give you insight to the things that you want to know about. Now, let me tell you what this MVMNT podcast is about. I've journeyed in my life in several places and several things that I sometimes look back and I wish that I have someone that I could talk to. I wish that the things that I've embarked on, I had reference point, I had people, I had individuals, friends, colleagues, books, tapes that I could go back and reference, and through the lens of what I have seen or spoken through with them, I'm then able to map out my own journey. And this is what this MVMNT podcast would be about. It's going to be a GPS map for many of you. I want you to truly enjoy every conversation, every laughter, every tears, every vulnerability, because we are going to have so much great time together as we move together. So the first thing I want to say to you, are you ready to join the movement? If you are, click on the subscribe button. And not only that, like this page and share it with your friends and family. And as you do that, you've joined the movement. So let the movement begin. 1, 2, 3, go. Movement. On this episode, I will be talking about ministry. I hate ministry. I do. This episode is for people who you feel called yet stuck. You feel called, but you don't want to do it. You don't want to follow the plans of God or the call of God upon your life. You don't want to label a pastor, a prophet, an evangelist, a teacher, an apostle. You find yourself, or you call yourself an outlier. You don't want to play by the rules. You're a creative, maybe a business owner. You love God. You see yourself doing so many mighty things for Him, but you don't really want the title. You don't really care about the title. You just want to be low-key and doing your own thing, but you want to have impact. But there seems to be somewhere in your heart that tells you that there is more to you. And so this podcast is Ministry 101 podcast for the outliers. People like me. People that don't want to ever do ministry, but somewhere on your inside, you know that that's what you've been designed to do. So I want to talk to you about it. I will share with you my own frustrations. I'll share with you reasons why I almost gave up. Yes, you heard that correct. I'll be very, very vulnerable with you. I share with you interesting things about ministry, what you should know, what you should do better, what mistakes you shouldn't make, things you should think about before you begin to jump into accepting the call of God on your life. So if you're ready, get ready for some time of knowledge. Let's count the word, spell the word movement, and I'll begin speaking right away. Let's go. MVMNT. So let's get right into it. I have to start out by sharing my story with you. Most people know me as Sholes, but they used to know me as Sholes. Some people call me Sholes Steady. And now everywhere I go to, people call me PS. Of course, the word PS means Pastor Shola. And I'll tell you why I hate ministry and why I never wanted to do ministry. I grew up, in a family of 6. And just right beside my house, there was a church right beside my house. Every single day, this man and his family would have service from 6 a.m. and end their service sometimes at 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m. every day. Not only that, they will come back again at 6 p.m. every day, including Saturdays, and start doing service right beside my house. This is a big property. And then you know how you find the speakers, how they put speakers outside so that everybody who's driving past can hear what they're saying. And so it was noise pollution. I would literally wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes when they start the meeting by 6 a.m. I wake up and I'm just angry. I'm just like, what is wrong with these people? And in the evening, you're just too sure that they're going to have service again. So I was very, very upset. I was very, very angry with the construct of church. And just because I felt a certain way about this particular church, which I termed noise pollution to me. Of course, I knew I didn't know better at the time, but I just wanted to enjoy my life. Now, at this time, I used to be the one at home alone. And so I was stocked up with the noise, alone with that family or that church. So I was really upset about church, like, what is wrong with these people? Who are they? What are they about? Right? Now, when I moved into university, I had some terrible experience about church and ministry. And I think that scarred me in a very funny way. I've always shared this story. I have 3 stories I'm going to share with you. The first story is I went to HSLTB in Obafemi Awolowo University. And at the time, I saw a church. I don't want to mention the name. They're having a conference. And they had invited this man of God to come and speak. And as soon as I looked into that building, I saw this man of God coming down with 14 protocols. 14. I counted them myself. One had his phone with him. One had his this face towel that he's going to use to clean his face. One had his Bible. One had his notepad. All of them wore the same color of ties. I was just like, what is wrong? What is all this? I was just so upset about it. So that's one of the reasons why I said to myself, I can never be a pastor. I love God. I wanted to serve him. But to be a pastor, to do ministry like ministry the way it is known, and that's another conversation we're going to have, the construct of ministry and what ministry really means. You see, this podcast is to help those people who you feel like you have a call of God upon your life, but you are really frustrated about it. You don't want to jump on it. You don't want to do it because of, the way it is being projected, particularly in this side of the world. And so just listen to my story. You're going to really be excited that there is a new day for you. So the first story is the story of the HSLTB man of God. That's my new name for him. And then the second story was we had gone somewhere one time, myself and some of my friends, and we, this is going to be very funny. And there's a place where we call Forks and Fingers in Obafemi Awolowo University to eat. And one of my friends was a pastor at the time. I wasn't a pastor then. And we're just going to go eat. And then he stood outside. We were inside. We looked like, why are you? Why? Come inside, let's eat. And the next thing he said to me that, he's a pastor. He can't be found eating where everybody is. He just has to. And I understood the concept. But what was ringing in my own head wasn't necessarily that you can't eat amongst your friends. What was ringing in my own head is that, am I going to change who I am? I'm going to have to give up myself, because I just want to please people. So the second red flag for me was, I'm not going to change me. And I know that that's the biggest challenge for many people. I'm going to lose myself, especially when you think about pastoring, what comes to your mind is suit and tie. It's like, yeah, I'm going to start wearing suit. I'm going to start wearing tie. I can have my dreads on. I can do what I want to do. I can have the liberty, right? So that's the second thing that, was a red flag for me. So the first one was, I feel like pastors were put into high pedestal with the HSLTB pastor. The second thing was my friend, we couldn't eat together because, he had this sense of exclusivity because he's a pastor. So that meant for me, I'm going to lose myself because I want to please a group of people. The third thing was an experience that I had that I said to myself, I'm not sure I want to be in the public eye. This experience happened to me myself when I was in Obafemi Awolowo University. At this time, I was already leading a dance group in P-degree in Obafemi Awolowo University, just moving into university at the time. And I started a dance group called The Word. It was so powerful. And, I'll share more story about that. But we had moved into Obafemi Awolowo University and I was still leading this dance group. And we're ministering one day at amphitheater. Then a friend of mine who we were in school together, in secondary school together, I'm going to share some story about that, came to this program that we're doing because he had invited us to minister in this church, this big church, and came there and then he saw me. He was recounting this story for me. He was standing way far away. As soon as he came into the building, he saw me because I was the head of the dance group. I was in front dancing. And people were worshiping while we're dancing. The power of God was so evident right there. And as soon as he saw me, him recounting this story for me, he said, oh my God, Shola has come to deceive these people again. And he was so upset that he said to me, he walked away. So like, I'm not going to listen to this ministration. And so he walked away from amphitheater. And so when we met, because he was a student as well, it was like, Shola, I know you, I sabi you when we did university now. Let me recount my story there. When I was in secondary school. I did some very crazy things. I used to, there was a time they suspended me from school in the space of 3 weeks about 4 times. We literally used to go and borrow our father's clothes. I remember I would borrow I would take my dad's clothes, not borrow because if you borrow, you need the person's permission. I'll steal my dad's clothes, then borrow somebody, pay him 2,000 naira to come represent us as dad. And so before the principal or before the school, they would take the 2,000 naira. There's a particular man, don't let me mention his name, he is still holding my father's clothes. He has not returned the clothes to today. So if you're watching this podcast, return my dad's clothes. And as I've casted myself, my dad knows that I've done these bad things, but the Lord has helped me. So the third fear that I had was being canceled by people who knew my past. And that's one of my very good friends who saw me and just like, my message was never going to penetrate his heart because he knew who I was and he was saying to me, look, there's no way God can use somebody like you. Because I used to be very bad. I used to do very crazy things. I started drinking at 15. We started going to clubs. So and he knew we were in the same caucus. So he knew everything, right? So for him, it was like, yeah, guy, don't deceive these people. These are the 3 reasons I said to myself, I'm going to serve God. I'm going to honor God, but I never want to be at the forefront. I had fears of being highly exalted by people. And I've seen stories. I know how people get destroyed because of exaltation and honor. And there's nothing wrong with honor. The second fear that I had was that I'm going to lose myself. I'm going to lose my uniqueness. I'm going to lose my difference, my beauty. I can wear my clothes the way I want to wear them. I can look how I want to look. I have to be self-conscious with everything. And the third reason why I said I was never going to be a pastor was because of the fear of the past, the backlogs of the past coming to meet me in the future. Well, I present to you Pastor Shola Okodugha. I guess that says it all. I'm now a pastor. Now, the question is, how did I do that? How did all of this fear and all of this trauma and all of these experiences, how did I move past it? And how did I embrace the call of God upon my life? And this is how I want to help so many people with the MVMNT Podcast. How did I do this? Now, one of the most powerful things that you must understand about life is the concept of predestination. For example, you see this microphone over here? The person who designed this microphone first had a thought about a microphone in his mind to produce. Before you produce anything, it must come as a thought first. The moment he created a thought of a microphone in his mind, he then went to work to produce the microphone. Now, the microphone must always match up with what he saw in his mind before it landed in his hands. That's exactly a similitude of what God is and what God does. Remember what he said to Jeremiah? He said, before I formed you, I knew you. And so before the microphone came to pass, where people can begin to purchase and buy it, the microphone first existed in the thoughts and the mind of that person, which is what exactly happened to God. This is such a powerful consolation for you and I, that before we came to the earth, God knew us. He knew who we're going to be. He knew our path. He knew our journey. He accepted all of the flaws of all of that, and yet he still labeled us who he has chosen us to be. Yes, society can label us something. Your background can label you something, but there is something that God sees concerning you and I. And so predestination is that before you show up, the story has been written, the job has been done, and then the next thing is just go and execute what has been done. It's just like when you have a party, all right? If you give your event planner the party, you say, this is the kind of party I want to do. I want to have a cocktail party. I want to have a banquet party. I want to have, whatever kind of party. The party that you design with the event planner, it is upon that premise they would design the whole concept, the whole floor plan, the whole way it's going to look like, because you've chosen the kind of party. I wouldn't say I want to do a Owambe party, and then on the day I get there, I meet a cocktail party. It doesn't correlate because that's not what I want to do. Predestination is that before you ever showed up, everything was already designed. So if I want a cocktail party and I tell my event planner I want a cocktail party, because I've designed the concept in my mind, by the time I'm getting there, I meet everything cocktail because it is already designed in my mind. God already designed you as a pastor. Yes, you. He already designed you as an apostle. Yes, you. He already designed you as a prophet, a teacher, an evangelist. Yes, you. Can I tell you something? There is really nothing you can do about that. That's who you are. That's just who you are. You might have dreads. You might have tattoos on your body. You might have a life that, has been crazy. You might have done so many crazy things. You just might even not want to be at the forefront, because I know there are people who have fears of being at the forefront. You just want to enjoy your life. You just want to serve God, love him, honor him, and the construct of kingdom financier. That's the escape for many people now. Well, I just want to make money. I wanted to be a kingdom financier. You can be a prophet and still be a kingdom financier. Kingdom financier is not exclusively a role in the body. It's who every one of us should be for the gospel. Anyway, that's a different conversation to have. Now, the first thing is there is a predestination that you must know, and that would never change, even if you say to yourself you don't want to be a pastor. So how did I tackle these three things? Number one, how would I be who I'm supposed to be without necessarily having all the noise that comes with being a pastor? How do I be myself? So let me start out with the second one, which is being yourself. Before I got ordained to ministry December 17, 2017, my biggest cry, I remember the night before my ordination, which was my birthday, I was saying to myself, is this how I'm going to lose myself? I remember speaking to my girlfriend, then now my wife. I said, babe, am I going to lose myself? I think that's going to be the biggest fear for many people watching me right now. Is that, am I going to lose myself? Would I be on the spotlight so much that I can make any mistake? Let me share this story with you guys. I remember when I've just got ordained to ministry. One time I was going for midweek service and I was driving. And I had a member seated beside me in Lagos, just around Maryland axis here. And I was driving, this downfall guy just, turned his hand towards me. And I was so upset. I just swerved back and I turned my hand right back. And the guy wind down and started abusing me. And I was going for midweek service. And I wind down. And I did like this. Shake bounce. I got, as I said, God, Paul, I just remember that I had a member going to church with me. So I put my hands down and I started praying in tongues. So, look, God saw all of that, all your frailties, all your faults, before he made you a pastor. You see, the thing about fear of falling is that you make it premium to your journey. It's always the concept when people say, when you fly planes, you begin to pray, oh God, may this plane not crash. But are you aware that there are more safe landing than more plane crashes? What happens many times is that once one plane crashes, what happens is the media makes noise about it as though every plane is crashing. Every single day all around the world, there would be about 20,000 air flight every single day, every single day. And maybe just sometimes once in a year would we hear about a plane crash every single day. So just because one plane crashes does not mean that every plane is crashing. That tells you just because one person fell in ministry or just because one person made mistake in ministry doesn't mean everybody is making mistake in ministry. Remember what God told Elijah? He said, I have 7,000 people who have not yet bowed to bow. So you have to make a constellation in your heart with that. So the first thing I did was that I said to myself, I remember on the 17th of December, I said to myself, Shola, this is who I am. I can't try to be Otedola. I can't try to be Dangote. I can't try to be anybody. This is me. In as much as I love and I embrace other people's calling and people who are business owners, some of my friends are business owners, creators, I love them. But this is me. Even though I want to be a business owner, which I am, or I want to do something else, but my wiring, my setup, my makeup, I can't be who I'm not. That's me. And that's the only way I can get my life fulfillment. My life fulfillment would not be in doing somebody else. I remember, let me share this story. I met a 76-year-old man in London. I was at a coffee shop and I met him and we're talking. I was about taking coffee and he looked at my sneakers and he said, oh, I like your shoes. And that's how we got talking. And I sat with him, and when I have the privilege to sit with older people, I always ask them questions. And so the first thing I asked as a white man, I said, what did you enjoy the most about life? He looked at me and said, do you really want to have the answer? I said, yes. He said, I look back now, and my biggest pain is that I'm a different version of who I'm supposed to be. And that's such a powerful thing. He said, because I went through the path of those I admired, not who I was supposed to be. It's possible for you to go through a part of people that you admire, the the line of business, the liberty. You want to be an influencer, you want to be a model, you want to be, but deep within your own spirit, you know you are called of God. And I know where a lot of people escape from these things now. They say, yeah, all of us, we are called. We are all called to the ministry of reconciliation. Absolutely, we are all called to the ministry of reconciliation. I'm talking about specifically those of you who have a grace, not just to be in the fivefold ministry, but there's something special God has called you to do for Him on the face of the earth that might label you as a pastor or a prophet or an evangelist. I even really think that what God is doing in our generation is that He's creating or designing prophets, apostles, teachers, evangelists in disguise. I think that the people who are going to play major roles in the body of Christ in our generation might not necessarily even have a title of being a pastor, a prophet, or teacher, evangelist. But I tell you the truth, they would sit in those offices because that's their calling, that's their office. But God would just make them the people will not just see them coming because of the kind of design that I believe that God is even doing in the generation. So the first thing I did, like I was saying earlier, is I said to myself, I would not lose myself. It was a decision. I remember I prayed that night on the 16th of December, and I said, I will never lose my difference. This is the first thing I want to say to you about embracing your call. You are different. You are unique. The call of God is not there to take your difference from you. I know people hide their difference so much. They protect it because they just fear. Like, doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to make my hair the way I like to do it anymore. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to wear those shoes. Of course, there will be some things you'll probably not be able to do because you can't drink Gouda, in a Coke bottle. Yeah. There are things you probably not be able to do anymore, in a sense. But there are things that it's just who you are. Let me tell you something. I know people who, when you look at them, they have nothing that looks like ministry physically. But when they pick the mic to preach, when they pick the mic to pray, you'll be like, boy, what a grace and what an anointing. But some of those people don't want to merge with the church. They don't want to work with the call of God. They don't want to do anything because of the fear of losing their difference. So you have to say to yourself, number one, you are not going to lose your difference. Look, the word difference and the word differentiation, it's just like coming out from the normal order of something. A gold egg in 20 silver egg is different. That's you. Don't lose it. It's okay to rebel against the status quo. It's okay to break the circle of normalcy. And let me tell you something. Real generational impact is when one person decides to go against the tides in accordance to how God has designed them to be. And that's very okay. Now, the world might never really understand that. The world might never really accept you. But if you break don't you see how every one of us in ministry are alike? It's boring, don't you think so? Like, there's a construct of ministry. It's like every pastor, every teacher, every evangelist, everybody's the same. Even worship leaders now, we are the same. You hear everybody say, my God, my God, my God. It's the same. But you can be different. Listen, I tell you this. One of the things I found in ministry is that your difference is your attraction. Never forget that. What you think would be a reason for your unacceptance, what you think that people will not accept you for, is actually the reason why people would accept you. Because you say, but this is who I am, and I don't want to do ministry because they will never really get it. That's the reason why people would get it. So it's okay to break the construct. It's okay to break the status quo. It's okay to break. We want diversity. I'm telling you, if you go ask many pastors, they'll tell you that I feel like, and I can say this, I really feel like what God is doing in our generation is an injection of difference, because difference is beauty. That's where we're going to, harvest a lot of beauty. And that's how we're going to be able to reach the diversity of people in our generation. So don't accept the status quo. Rebel against the normal order. That's why the name of this podcast is movement. Move against the tides. Be you. Do you in the right way according to biblical patterns and biblical order. I hope you understand what I mean by that. But that's what's going to make you different. I remember when I became a pastor, and I didn't used to wear suits and ties. I don't like it. Never still do. I don't like it till today. The only reason why I wear suits and ties and shirts is because I found out that after some time when the church started, we started to attract working professionals and young families and things like that. And some of them just felt like, I don't want to be with a pop pastor in that sense. And so I moved that way and I started wearing suits and ties. Now I've changed that because some of them are now saying to me, like, P.S., I love when you used to wear t-shirts and jeans. Why do you always wear suit and tie every Sundays? It's looking too uptight. I'm like, wait, I wore suit and tie because of you guys. Now you guys are saying you want, so you know what? I will just do me. And they're a group of people. One of the powerful things that you must know is that you are not sent to everyone. You will never be able to reach everyone. But there are people, the Bible says, my sheep hear my voice, the voice of the stranger they will not follow. So there are people who you are sent to. There are people your own difference would embrace and would attract. So don't change who you are for anything. Allow that blend to happen, which is the reason why people say they don't want to do ministry. Let me share this one story. I met a guy 2 years ago, last year, pardon me. I was in a restaurant and I was having dinner with a friend. And then I saw this guy sitting on the other side. He had tattoos and he had dreads on. And I saw the guy and I was quite attracted to his aura and his charisma that he. So I was telling my friend that there's something about this guy. Apparently the guy knew me on social media. And so while I was looking at him, he waved at me and said, "Hello, sir." And so I was done eating with my friend. I went to his seat and I sat with him and I was just, having a conversation and asking him, what do you do? And while he was speaking, not just the fluency of his words and the dexterity that he showcased, not really that. I just saw so much grace and, about the guy. And so the next thing I said to him was, "Are you a pastor?" And he laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And he looked at me after laughing. When people laugh like that, the next thing you're expecting them to do is that, "How did you know?" "Yes." And then he goes, "No." I was like, "Chill, I'm not fighting you." And he went, "I can never be that. Pastors are this, pastors are scams, and you can see it on Twitter and social media. Every market day they are dragging pastor. They have me too, they've dragged me, so it's okay. And that's one thing you must be ready for. Be ready to be dragged." Anyway, that's another conversation. So I was like, why don't you want to be pastor? Why don't you want to be a pastor? And the next thing he said to me really broke my heart. He said, "My father was a pastor, but I knew my dad growing up." And he said this word, he said, "We lost my dad." I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, is your dad late?" He said, "No, my dad is not late. My dad is alive, but he's not there. He's not alive." And I was like, "Okay, is he physically present or not?" He said, "No." He said, "My dad changed who he was." Listen, while we respect the fathers and honor the fathers, and we will always do that, one of the biggest things that I find is that in the quest to want to do ministry according to the order and according to the pattern, people lose themselves completely. They lose their uniqueness because we try to merge our identity for acceptability to the image that has been predominantly known in ministry. So once people have an image of who you have to look like a construct, the kind of Bible you must carry, the kind of clothes you must wear, the kind of suit and the kind of jacket, once you don't have that look, This is one of the reasons why people who are genuinely called, many of you watching me online right now that are, let me use the word, pardon me, crazily anointed, who don't want to do ministry because you feel like you have to become another person. You don't have to be that. We need more people who would go against the tides. Oh yes, male and female, who would not necessarily have to flow in that pattern. And I could see this guy, and I asked him a question. I said, do you feel you are called of God to be a pastor? And he started telling me stories about how everyone in his family, a generational grace, like a priestly order upon his family. His grandfather was a pastor. His father is a pastor. And he said, I know. He said, but I would choose my own uniqueness. And I said to him, do you know you can embrace your uniqueness and ministry? But he wasn't getting it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing podcasts like this. That's why it's called movement. The whole idea is that I want to move. You see people that are called to the ministry, but have a uniqueness to them. Let's MVMNT you into the new order. So God wants new people. God wants you to embrace your uniqueness. Your difference is your superpower. Embrace it. Love on it. Be you, but do what God has called you to do. Finally, don't let it ever be that the reason why you will not get good and faithful servant is because you were scared of what ministry would take away from you versus what you can bring into ministry. Are you aware that some of our fathers, name them, they were the ones who brought, we have fathers of faith who brought drum sets to ministry. People didn't used to use drum sets before. People didn't used to use piano. People, they never used to, until recently, where we still have debates on wearing trousers and wearing, caps or whatever to church. But there were people who broke the tides. Now you can go to churches, you can see screens, you can see lights. People didn't used to do those things. But that's someone who, people who embrace their uniqueness, brought it in, and now everybody's doing it. Could that be you? Don't be silenced. You will not be silenced. Embrace your uniqueness, and let's do this ministry together. This is a call out for many of us who know that we are different. We know that God has called us, but we're scared of doing the work of the ministry. Look into my eyes. Can you see me? I'm doing it. You too can. Embrace your uniqueness. Don't change that, but bring that uniqueness and that difference and bring it into the call and see how God changes that. You see how Moses wasn't changed. Jesus wasn't changed. Peter wasn't changed. They just brought their difference. Paul wasn't changed. Don't let society change you. Let the word of God change you. But bring in your uniqueness and your difference to the work of the ministry. Did you get something today? Yes, I'm excited. I look forward to hearing from you. You can send me an email, don't forget. And I'm very happy. If you also want to join the movement community, you see details right on the screen right now. You can join this movement community. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to talk to you. And I have plans to have movement, conversations around cities in Nigeria and even outside the country this year. So if you want to be a part of this movement community, to the outliers, to the people who are like the outcasts, but you know that there's something special and something different about your life and about your journey, I look forward to speaking with you and seeing you very soon. And in the next episode, I will tell you how I embraced the call, and I'll begin to share with you the struggles and some vulnerable conversations that I'll be sharing with you exclusively for the very first time on my pain and one of the reasons why I wanted to give up and walk away from ministry finally. But then, until I see you next time, keep moving. Don't stop moving. Movement is this group. Movement is this name. Let's move. All right? See you next time. Move. Bye for now.